Alright guys, this is the cheapest small block Ford cylinder head available today. We got an engine build coming up that is a super budget. The heads on it were smoked. We figured these would be worth a shot since the other ones' heads needed everything. And I'm going to bring you guys in, hopefully give you guys a better review on this than some others. We'll hopefully maybe touch on a couple points that I think they missed out on. So follow along. Alright. These things don't weigh as much as other heads do, strictly for the fact that they don't come with pushrod guide plates and or rocker arm studs. So these look very, very familiar boxing as to my AFR enforcer heads. So we have instructions. I'm sure there's a lot of Chinese stuff in there. Avoid children using cylinder head. This product is not a toy. Do not allow children to play. Yeah. All right. So, see what we got. The package well. Nothing's crushed or damaged. I'm getting you guys a good shot of this with the forehead cam. Alright, as we peel off this stuff. Decent finish. Let me put these on some stands. All right, I don't know which side you really want to see first. Here is the exhaust side. So straight away, I can tell these are very big exhaust ports. Kind of a little bit excessive for the 185cc number they're advertising. I guess the telltale sign is this lattice work and the aluminum casting, because they don't come with like head dowels or something like that a lot of other heads do. Let me just show you how big these exhaust ports are. Let me go get a exhaust manifold gasket. Here's a slightly used but still pretty decent shape standard Ford Fox body exhaust manifold gasket, and you can tell how much bigger it is. You're gonna have to do some research. I don't know if they give a specification for what kind of gasket's gonna fit on this. Let's flip it around. See if I can get down in there. Well, a little bit of a pinch point here. It's a little bit more than the enforcers have. Decent machining on the faces. Let's get a gasket up here. I can show you what size this is. This is a standard 5-liter intake manifold gasket, and it is way smaller than the shape of this. So let's step it up to Velpro, was it 1250? So even the 1250 is a bit small. The only other bigger gasket I have is these Cometics. And this is a Cometic, was a 14906. Let's pull one of these out. So, and these are good top to bottom, just good top to bottom. And they could use a smidge of trimming side to side, but we're gonna have another block torquer 2. It's gonna have a smaller port opening than this anyway, so this would need a gasket trim, and I think we'll be fine with that. But let me give a measure quick and see what size these intake ports are. Yeah, I don't like the way they neck down. I'll show you this in a little bit when I get the AFR enforcer up here, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. I'm just gonna keep taking this head apart a little bit and see what we got. All right, here we got a couple valves out. First look inside the chambers. One thing I do notice is this very big shrouded portion over here, right in the corner. I think they're trying to steer the airflow toward the valve and up that way. Pretty big pinch point. Chamber is a little odd. Not much in the way of a machinist ridge, which is good. A little bit more on the exhaust side, but that may need just a little bit of cleanup. A little machined area here that could use a grinder to knock that down. And this little weirdness here, shape around the spark plug hole. But the valve job doesn't look bad at all. It's good transition. A little bit of a throat cut in there with a machining cutter. That'll need some cleanup with a burr. Let's flip it over, look at it from the other side. Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. For the short turn. smooth. Could use a bit of refinement with a grinder to smooth that out, or cartridge roll. But not terrible. Heck of a lot better than any cast iron head we're gonna ever get. Let's have a look over the exhaust here now. Not too shabby. That's smooth. Short turn on the exhaust side. Looks actually pretty good. Yeah, a little refinement needed, but yeah, overall, nothing to really complain about for the price. All right, let's go look at the valve train, see what's up with that. A few concerns, just to show you what we're working with here, though. Undercut, swirl polished, 11/16 inch valve, single groove keeper, and we have 10-degree locks with the reliefs for the lash caps if we would use it. Double valve springs. I've seen these before on a lot of other Chinese heads. So people that say that the valve train in these things is junk, well, I don't think there's been a lot of rash of other valve springs breaking on the other like Pro Comp heads and things like that. So I think these are the same. I don't think there's a concern. We'll check the pressures in a bit. The retainers are a little loose. I would like to see them a little tighter. You can see a little bit of a play in there. But these, I'll talk about those keepers or locks in a minute. The valve guide seals, these aren't the nice blue ones, and I did see a little tear when I took them apart. These are 0.530 inch diameter guide seals. I got a whole big pack of them. We'll be replacing them when it goes back together. Main problem I see with these heads right now is these locks. Let me show you a still picture here of these locks. They do not fit well. They're not machined well. It seems like they may be a stamped part because I can see like the casting lines in it, and then they harden it after, and there's all kinds of bumps and weird things going on with them. They don't fit the guide or the valves well. They don't lock in. They're not machined well, and I am gonna replace these locks for sure. Yeah, these don't belong in an engine. And these are so hard that I had to file around the edges of the valves to pull them out of the guides because they were sticking. And I mean, they haven't even been run, so the locks are digging into the valves. I'm sure these are going to dig in to the retainers, and since they don't fit well, I'd be worried about them popping apart in case you ever had a big camera or any valve float. So that is, probably a $40, $50 upgrade you're going to have to do right off the bat if you want to get these heads, because I wouldn't trust these locks. Now the valves themselves, don't know the metallurgy, but I know, a good strong magnet does not stick at all to the exhaust valve, but the intake valve is a different level of steel. So I assume that the exhaust valves are meant for some higher heat. Let's measure them, and then measure the guides and check the clearances. All right, so measuring the guides, measuring the valve stems. My little small hole gauge. Each guide is exactly the same. So 0.3426 inches in diameter. Measure the valves. So the intake valves, 3411. So 0.0015 clearance on the intake and 0.022 on the exhaust. So that's kind of nice. We got a little bit more clearance. But the clearance is built into the valve stem rather than the machining of the guide. So I'll check the others in turn before it all goes back together, making sure everything's the same. But I'm happy with that. And what else do we want to check? All right, measuring valve spring installed height. We have got my good pack spring height checker here. And already it's moving around. With these locks being not very precise, I can sit here and I can force this around a bit, and I think they should be at 1.800 is what they really want. But because these locks have so much play, I can torque these around, and I can't do it one-handed, but I can get some more out of this if I turn it, and it starts getting stiff around the 1.8 mark, but you can still keep going and going. You can still see it's floating around a little bit in there. So it's not super tight. I can probably go more, but yeah, I think because of these locks, it's making the installed height a little bit different and weird. So I checked the exhaust earlier, it's about the same. So I mean, you look across the top of all the valves. Let me get my good straight edge. All right, so you can see, hopefully you can maybe see, the intake valves are a little bit lower installed height than the exhaust valves are. The exhaust valves are all good and very level with each other, and I assume the intakes would be as well, but can't get on them because they're a little lower. But for what it's worth, let's check the springs next. All right, I got my old school Proform valve spring checker. I could check it at different heights, but I can only get so tight before this thing runs out of travel. So these double springs with the retainer addition, subtraction done, we have ourselves 145 psi on the seat, and up through the ranges, it goes up by a spring rate about 30 psi per every tenth of an inch. So up to 0.6 of lift, you got 325 pounds on over the nose. I guess if you had a cam that went that big, I don't recommend it, because if you a lot of people say that these spring sets are junk and they'll just put like one of the Trick Flow spring kits in there. Well, that Trick Flow kit, the 2500100 kit, on the seat, because I think it's a single spring kit, I've had a couple of them in the past, its single spring is 118 pounds on the seat versus 145, and then they're only good to about 0.54 lift, but they have 330 pounds at 0.54, and that's still more than you get with these double springs at 0.6 lift. So they're trying to cheat a little bit, I think, and start you out higher, but then they still don't get enough by the time they're full lift. So probably the only cams I would recommend using this, either, I don't know how it would be pulling this out. I got to check again and see what the rate is to see if using it for a flat tappet cam would be best, or a very mild, like maybe an E cam, B cam, Trick Flow stage 1 type of stuff is all that I would think would be wise to use with these springs. I mean, just don't go it's a $260, $70 head. You're not going to expect the world, but that is what you can expect, and it's just, I think, a little bit under what a Trick Flow spring would be. So put that in your back pocket in case you had these in mind. What else do we want to go over? I think I'm going to pull up my AFR 185 enforcer head, put them side by side, and we'll do some comparisons for the people that are kind of on the fence on which way they want to go. All right, I got two valves out so we can compare port size and things like that, but here's the enforcer head versus the Vevor head. So you can see it doesn't have the lattice work on the front. But all right, so you can see different exhaust manifold bolt options. Here's the Vevor head. So it is pretty wide. So there's the Vevor head, and the AFR head is significantly smaller. Not significantly smaller, but a fair bit smaller than the exhaust port, so it may fit some gaskets better. I mean, I can start throwing some numbers out at you, but yeah, it's a little smaller through the port as well. Let me see if I can get this down there. And yeah, so the Vevor head does have a lot bigger exhaust port, and I don't know why. The casting is a little rougher. Not by much, but it is a little rougher on the Vevor. Let's flip it around to the intake. Alright, so hopefully I can get in here and show you what's going on. The Vevor head has got a 2.1 inch by 1.3 inch port, and the AFR has a 2 inch by 1.13 inch port. So it seems like the AFR port, by the numbers, is smaller, but until you get in here and you can see this pinch point, so I got little inside diameter calipers here, so we can go inside the port here. That's as wide as it can go, but you go into the AFR port and you got a lot more volume down the port in the AFR than you do with the Vevor head. So the pinch point is 0.920 inches here, and the AFR, you're 1.065 inches at the smallest. Yeah, so your port is that much bigger or wider in the AFR than the Vevor head. So even though it's smaller, it's going to flow more. The valve sizes are the same, 2.2, 160. I mean, the valve train here this is what you're paying for with the AFR head. You got, pack racing valve springs, a heck of a lot smaller diameter. You got 8-inch stems, you got polished valve faces, you got single groove lock, and lightweight retainers. Still got double valve springs. Yeah. So the stem is smaller, so there's not as much restriction for air to go in the port with the AFRs. The valve job, we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, so far I think the AFR is going to outflow the Vevor by a lot, and I'll show you another reason why. Because if you get in here, you just look down the port, you can see this edge right here, how it's a big shadow, because it's like, I don't know if there's water in here or a hump where they kind of want to steer the air down toward the center of the port before they turn it in. And it's a lot bigger dip transition around this wall. So let me flip this over and show you. So if you ever talk to big time head porters or cylinder head people, they want to be able to look past the valve and see down into the chamber. And that's all you can really see on the Chinese head. That little bit of light right there, because I got the flashlight hanging right behind the port. Then you come over here to the AFR head, and you can see a lot more through the port on the AFR head than you can the Chinese head. So I don't know what the numbers are going to be for the Chinese one, but don't expect it to flow near what the AFR does. So let's look inside the chambers here and compare the two. So here we got the Chinese head. It seems, looking straight down, like it would be a bigger bowl, but then you look over to the left and you see this big area here, and I don't know why it's so big, but I mean the transition around is reasonably smooth. Yeah, I don't like that. But around this port, the short turn radius is not too bad. Just needs some smoothing with a cartridge roll. That's just a little lip there from the bowl cut. Very nice transition out through the valve into the chamber. Not much of a machinist ridge, but there is this little area again by the spark plug. But over on the AFR side, still looks kind of big. Then you start looking to the left, and that whole area is like non-existent. So we can get all that extra flow coming from, and the short turn radius is a lot nicer and smoother, not lumpy, coming around the left. So the guide's not exposed like it is on the Vevor head. It helps pull heat away from the valve guide, out of the valve into the head a little bit better, and the vane just helps guide the air around. But it does have a little bit more, like a cartridge roll would improve this head a lot more than the Chinese head, but it does have a bit more of a machinist ridge in the chamber side, where the Chinese head does not have as much bad of one. So it's like you're definitely going to get more flow, but some of the quality differences is a trade-off between the two. I mean, the spark plug is still just exposed threads, but not this bulky, weird shape thing. And then the exhaust port, it's not still completely enclosed valve guide to pull heat out of the valve. Yes, more cartridge roll action would certainly help, and not as much of a machinist ridge on the exhaust side. But there's a bit of one on the Vevor. Yeah, it's just give and take. But the exhaust port, even though the Chinese one is bigger, that's got some lumps and bumps in the AFR one, and this one is smoother, but it's got a lot bigger exhaust port for some reason. Yeah, with some good cleanup, this would be nice, and this would be nice, but I still give the ultimate flow nod to the AFR head, just because it doesn't have that big, bulky bit of casting like right here. Sure hope you can see that. What else? It's got these. I actually do like this feature in a head. because this little pocket area here, it lets you know if the head's been skimmed and skimmed and skimmed, because this little portion starts to disappear after a while. The AFR head doesn't have that, so you really can't tell how much has been skimmed over the years. I mean, you can just see the difference in the casting. You got the trapezoidal ones across the bottom. Here they're just machined circles. This is your oil drain port. Looks like AFRs. Put it where it needs to be, and then this one comes down, and then they jink it over. A little machinist cut. I've seen some metal block heads do that. I mean, the AFR heads come with the step washers and the guide plates and the rocker studs. So the big debate is less than $300 for these, or you're talking $700 each for the AFR heads. I mean, it all depends. It's up to you guys. I mean, this is, you know, just one guy's opinion review video here, but these have a place. These do not have a place in a car that you expect to really get down, go fast, and last a long time. This will last a long time. It's not the best out there. The Renegade AFR heads are vastly superior to this, but you get what you pay for with the casting. I mean, the valve train, I would think it would be the same, but just the CNC porting and machining, you know, the quality of the aluminum, and probably a good warranty. I don't know what kind of warranty you're going to have with those, especially since I shipped them all the way to England, you know, from the States. And but we're going to use them, put them together, change those locks, go through them, make sure everything's good. We're going to put new valve guide oil seals in it. I mean, I got a couple seals. So these are 11/32 by 0.530 Viton valve seals. We're going to stick in here, make them good. But all right, so just to be clear, these Vevor heads are just Speedmaster heads at like half the price. Because if you look at their mantra, you know, tough tools for half price. Well, if they took some Speedmasters and chopped the price in half, that's pretty much what you get here. I mean, they took away the rocker studs and the guide plates, probably to make that price point, but here you go. I mean, there's other sites out there that done reviews on Speedmaster heads. Eric Weingartner did a review a couple years ago on the Speedmaster head. They even floated him on his bench, talked about the pinch point, the combustion chamber size. I mean, it's all the same stuff. The only thing different versus the older Speedmaster head is they don't have this lattice work in here. I mean, the ports are the same, everything's the same. So this isn't reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just these heads at a different price point. So the springs, we'll talk about. The springs are kind of tried and true. They've been using them for years. Nobody's really complained about them. Nobody's really complained about dropping valves or anything like that in Speedmaster heads. I mean, you get what you're paying for. You know, it's way better than a stock iron head, but just don't expect the moon, you know, for quality. But yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, if you got an engine in need of some heads and you can get your hands on these, I think they come and go for availability. But I mean, I don't think you can go wrong for the money, but you're going to have to do a little bit of work to them before you would want to ever use them. Well, I hope I gave you some information about these heads if you were on the fence about if you were going to pull the trigger on them or not. Hopefully I wasn't too boring or monotonous. Hopefully I gave you some good facts that you couldn't find anywhere else in case you were wanting to know. Hopefully, you know, give me a like if you found this informative. Hopefully I possibly earned a subscription off of you. And maybe I'll see you guys back again here real soon. So take care, and thanks a lot. Bye-bye.